Next on Rugby Wrap-Ups, MLR Weekly, Los Angeles head coach Stephen Hoiles, John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, and the best dang recap in rugby. Rugby Wrap-Ups MLR Weekly brought to you by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, New York City, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle.
There is a massive responsibility on the 23 that are privileged enough to step out on that field today.
Let's start with the best recap in rugby. In Chicago, a battle of predicted Eastern Conference powerhouses went decidedly and surprisingly to the hometown Hounds. As we all learned in Road Team 101, a penalty try in the 7th minute is not a good way to start. Certainly not for the reigning two-time champion New England Free Jacks. Yet, they were still within striking distance at halftime, down 15-0, and a yellow card to Chicago's Mason Flesch gave New England fans, like now inconsolable Jacks Rangers, a glimmer of hope. But the Free Jacks failed to capitalize, and Balakana went to the bin, and the floodgates opened after a second penalty try. Final score, Chicago 36, New England 7. In Space City, it was a Western Conference heavyweight showdown between Houston and Seattle in what we thought was the game of the week. And just 2 minutes in, Damakina scored for the home team. But Seattle showed grit, taking the lead on a Devon Short try in the 55th minute. But a red card to Pongo Hakmahaini allowed the SaberCats to take the lead back before they got a red card of their own in the 76th minute. But the Cats have 9 lives, and they held on 24-21 in a thriller. The frigid and wildly wacky Washington win rendered the kicking game next to impossible, so everybody from Old Glory DC and the San Diego Legion knew that this was going to be an in-the-trenches slugfest where every meter was hotly contested. And it was. The Legion withstood the wind and every Old Glory sink thrown their way in an impressive road performance. Final score, 26-10 San Diego. In a sometimes sloppy match that will have their respective head coaches slamming their heads against the proverbial brick wall until the next game, the Anthem looked poised to win their first ever match, but it was poised that abandoned Carolina as the Miami Sharks used a late Beckerman try to take the lead, and they held on for dear life, leaving Anthem fans singing the blues. It just writes itself, folks. Final score, Miami 32, Carolina 31. High in the mountains of Utah, the Warriors and warm weather NOLA Gold started with a flurry as both teams were shorthanded from the 11th minute through the 18th minute. Joey Mano and Teofilo Fido exchanged tries, but the second half saw the visiting Gold begin to fade in the high altitude, and the hometown fans, along with Joey Mano with 2 more tries for the hat trick, were too much to overcome. The upstart Warriors 55, NOLA 21. Wow, I know I need a break. How about you? How about a coffee break with John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning? John calling in from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. John, how are you? What do you got?
Matt, has anyone ever told you how good you are?
Yeah, but not enough. Next.
Speaking of good, Matt, did you think the Miami Sharks would be in sole possession of first place after 3 games?
I did not. And if they could get out of their own way, they'd be 3-0, which they're going to rue that loss for the rest of their lives. Next.
Well, Matt, let's start with the Sharks. They beat the Anthem by 1 point. Again, as you said, an exciting match, a close one. Matt, I got to jump ahead to week 4 real quick. The Anthem are going to be playing Old Glory DC. A lot of people are thinking this is going to be Anthem's first win in Major League Rugby history. You're shaking your head. Tell me why OGDC is going to win this one.
Because they played a very tough match, didn't show up on the scoreboard against a very, very good San Diego team. And they had a bitter taste in their mouths after that match. I was pitch side. I was on the ground. I saw it. I felt it. I think Old Glory will come out, correct some of the wrongs. They're a decent team. They're very good. They got some very good players. They got that rugby IQ going now. I think they're gonna handle Anthem pretty easily. Next.
Matt, let's stay in the Eastern Conference real quick. Sunday night's game, that was a fun one. Sunday afternoon, the Chicago Hounds, New England Free Jacks. Chicago Hounds, man, they dominated the defending champion New England Free Jacks in a result that we haven't seen, an effort we haven't seen from the Free Jacks in a really long time. Matt, should we pump the brakes on this three-peat thing, or is that just one little blip?
Well, are the Free Jacks free falling, and are we going to call it free jacking with Jacks Rangers? I don't know. Maybe we can do that. I don't know. I heard maybe that we could. I don't know. But is that what the case is? I don't know. You know what? Everybody's out to knock this team down off, right? Every single week they're going to face it. It's a long season. You know, they just worked back in Conradi. He got like, 30 minutes in. You're going to get Melvin back, the man named Jed. You're going to get you got these guys in the same lineup at the same time. That changes the dynamic of the match completely. They've got animals in that back line on that roster, in that back row, I should say. And their back line is good. The fullback position is a question mark right now for them, right? You're replacing Reese McDonald, and right now you haven't done it. Next.
Of course, Reese McDonald is with RFC LA. He's yet to make an appearance, probably in a couple of weeks. Brian Ray may have more news on that. But, Matt, I hear you're talking with RFC LA head coach Stephen Hoiles here in the next segment. Can you ask him where in the world is Semi Kunatani?
I will. And I'm surprised you didn't ask him yourself walking through from the green room. Come on, he's just right over there.
I was starstruck. Sorry.
Well, you got to carpe diem, guy. Carpe diem. What else you got?
Now, last thing here. I mean, speaking of the Western Conference, I'll tell you one thing I didn't know going into the season that I do know now, and that's the Utah Warriors are pretty freaking good, man. They have scored, 100 points total in the last two games. I guess the second team in MLR history to do that, courtesy of James Dealey. Thanks for the stat there. But, man, were we wrong on Utah at the beginning of the season? What's going on here?
Well, you know what? They got the MLR Weekly bump when Coach Greg Cooper came on, and that's what's happened. And when you do that, when you come on this program, ladies and gentlemen, you get a bump. What else, John?
Man, I think I'm just going to bump on out of here because that's all I got.
All right. Okay. Thanks again, John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning with his coffee break segment. We'll be right back with Coach Stephen Hoiles of the LA Rugby Football Club, or Riflica, right after this.
Digs like a demented mole there.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
How you doing? I'm Jim Hamilton. I'm at the Pig and Whistle. I'm at the famous Pig and Whistle. Look, I've got my rucksack on. I'm a well-known man around the world as one of the best rugby players to have ever played the game. No, I'm not. It's a lie. But we've got Paul O'Connell's montage on the wall. I've heard a lot about this place, and I'm here. Make sure, though, that you come here, but you also tune in to Rugby Wrap-Up.
And we're back, and we have the pleasure of welcoming in Mr. Stephen Hoiles, the Director of Rugby and Head Coach of Rugby Football Club Los Angeles. Stephen, welcome to MLR Weekly.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me, mate.
All right, Steve, first things first, I just wanted to say that you're much better looking and younger looking than that cartoon version of you on the website. Did you tick off the graphics people or something?
I haven't seen that yet. Is that a new?
You haven't seen it?
No. Is it fresh on the RSC LA website, is it?
It's on, yeah. All of the staff and players have a caricature of them.
Okay, I'll show my kids I like it. But that's nice to hear that I'm looking younger than the character.
All right, for the folks that don't know you, I just wanted to go briefly through some of your history. 16 caps for the Wallabies, Australia's national team, as a back row player. And you've dealt with adversity as a player in terms of injury the entire 2005 international season because of reconstructive knee surgeries. In 2010, and I think you were with the Brumbies at the time, a routine surgery left you with like a splinter of bone in your Achilles that had you miss 3 more years.
I believe things happen for a reason, and it was a really good lesson for our family. Like it was a big family commitment to get myself back onto the field. Had 2 young kids at the time. I have 4 now, but it was, we moved out of Canberra. I was captain of the club, wasn't playing rugby. They didn't want their captain being injured for the 2nd and 3rd straight year, so had to move back to Sydney, which was always home, so that wasn't an issue, but wasn't sure what was happening with rugby and a job, so moved back in with my wife's parents and ended up going overseas to get the surgery in Sweden and got it fixed, and lucky enough to come back and had another couple of great years at the Waratahs, which is where I started, so yeah. And
that's where you won the title?
Yeah, in 2014, that was the Tars' first premiership. That was my first year back. And I'd played under Michael Checker 10 years earlier at Randwick. That was the club I've always been at. That was his club. So hadn't been coached by Michael for 10 years. I won a title with him in Randwick in 2004 and kind of felt that I wouldn't get the chance to play under him professionally because we got to see him before he became the international coach that he is now. But
sure.
We knew when he was a really young coach that he was exceptional and he did a great job with our club. And just thought I wouldn't get the opportunity to play under him again. And 10 years later, he actually asked if I wanted to be his recruitment officer at the start of that season because I hadn't played for 2 years. And I was highly offended because I didn't want to be a recruitment officer. I wanted to keep playing rugby, but people just thought of me as that I had retired. I hadn't.
Yeah, they're looking at you like you're nuts.
That's right. So, really enjoyed that season.
Well, let's cut to now. This isn't your first MLR rodeo. You were here with the Giltinis when they took the league by storm and won the Shield before being booted for the league for overpaying rugby players in America. Allegedly.
No. I'm happy to talk about it. Like, technically, we were done for... So Austin were done for overpaying players. We were behaviours deemed detrimental to the league. And we're all a part of it. It was a brutal way to finish a season and it was the end of our 2nd year, and we were just having such an enjoyable time on and off the field. Families, we were loving life in LA, and we were really proud of what we were doing on the rugby front. And it just got, it got taken from us there and then. And I can see reasons to argue both sides. To be fair, but it was a difficult thing to go through. And maybe I left here again. Probably the family. We weren't planning on heading back anytime soon when we did go back. But again, I went back to Sydney where home is, and I got to coach Randwick, which is the club I'd always played for and only club I've ever played for. I count Super Rugby teams as, they were your jobs, they were your franchises, but my club's always been Randwick. So I got to go back and do it again, but always felt that I'd like to come back to the MLR and go through it all again one more time and see if we can do it better.
So, there are obvious differences, but what are the main differences between the two organizations, the new one that you're with now and the one that you were with previously in LA?
Yeah, I just think the time that we brought the LA Giltinis formed, that was such a crazy ride because it was, think about the time we committed to move over as a family, and other players in the team did the same thing. It was the re-election of Trump or Biden. It was COVID, and it was the George Floyd riots. All of that was happening at the one time. So we kind of looked upon as pretty crazy in Australia to be packing up and moving over to America. But that in itself probably added to the sheer enjoyment when we won. It was just such an amazing, because Australia was in heavy lockdown. No one really knew if this rugby thing was going to get off the ground. We're putting our whole lives on hold to move over here and have this experience. So that added to the excitement of the post-COVID MLR. Just thought was amazing, because we sat here for a while and thought maybe this won't happen. Maybe we'll get all the way over to the States and the league won't go ahead for the year. There was just so much uncertainty. The difference between two clubs, it's probably way too early to tell. It's a very different ownership group. Like Adam Gilchrist, love him or hate him, and I got nothing but good things to say about him. Like he wasn't heavily involved in the operation of the footy side. The current owners aren't heavily involved in the rugby side of it. They really do trust us to run the team how we want to. probably the big difference is the fact that we're playing at UCLA as a home ground, and that's we're looking for a 3,000 to 5,000 people per game to really make it that intimate club field, whereas the Giltinis played at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And
so
far, yeah. So, but look, I think the best thing about rugby teams is that what you see from the outside might be very different, and that's all to do with your social media team and your marketing and how you want to portray yourself. But internally, teams are very similar. You've got similar characters, similar players. They all want to learn. Players are here in the MLR for a number of reasons, but not many of them are here to save up and buy houses out of MLR rugby. They're here because they want to improve. They want to have a memorable experience. And they want this. I view this as a competition that's growing. It's getting bigger and better. And you're seeing a lot of young guys using this as a stepping stone to international rugby or professional rugby in other parts of the world. And then other guys, Christian Lealiifano as an example, Matt Giddo, Adam Ashley Cooper, Ma Nonu, these guys are doing it at the end of their career almost in a way to experience sport in America, to experience rugby here, and to finish rugby on their own terms in an exciting competition.
You got a big match coming up against San Diego, the Cali Cup. What do you take out of the first two matches to apply to this one?
Well, I think we've got to make sure that all the key areas, we don't just have 3 really good areas and 2 poor areas. Like, we can't have really good attacking ruck speed, great shape in attack, and terrible connection in defence. Like, you've got to be consistent in all parts of it. You don't have to be 10 out of 10 in any one part of rugby, but you really have to be 7 or 8 out of 10 in most key aspects. And first week our line-out didn't function, or second week our line-out functioned really well. We've actually just got to make sure that the key contributors to the... And again, I'll go back to, we've actually just spoken a lot this week about being better in the tackle, being more physical in our tackle. And I think that's where it is. We haven't been together a long period of time. We had a good trip away to Fiji. In hindsight, we've probably spent too much time worrying about the shape and, how we look and how it feels out there, whereas... we've got to work on the 6 inches between our ears this weekend, because that's been hurting us. We've got to be prepared to, stop a really good side. They're arguably one of the form teams in the competition. They're not just winning their first 3 games; they're winning well. They're playing really good footy. I know Johnny Manenti well. He's a good coach. I know his crew. I know a lot of players there. We've had a trial against them, so we probably could have used the excuse we don't know who Houston. None of these guys have played against Houston. None of them knew who the Free Jacks were. If you didn't know anything about San Diego, we did 4 weeks ago because we played them, and we know a lot more about them. So there can't be any surprise factor this week.
Is there a particular brand or style of rugby that you'd like this team to go for?
I like the ball moving, and again, that's one of the challenges with the MLR. There's been a lot of stop-start rugby. There's a lot of TMO interference. Which is fine if you've got 10 cameras and you're getting decisions in a minute and you're getting the decisions right. But, that's something we need to make sure that we can control that. We've got to make sure that we keep the game moving. So, I like a style of footy where you can turn on the TV and, people will enjoy it. I've always thought that's how the game could be played and should be played. But, we've got to win games of footy too. So, I'd like to think you turn it on, you'll watch a team that's fit, that cares about each other, works really hard for each other in defence, and is really skillful. But they work at the basic skills, not flashy. There's individual flash, but I think as a team, I'd just like us to be a little bit more hard-working, a bit more resilient defensively.
John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning wants to know about Semi Kunatani because he has him on his fantasy Rutgers team.
Yeah, I'd have Semi Kunatani in my fantasy rugby team too. He had a pretty disrupted off-season. Visa was late, been a bit crook, but we're hoping he'll be, he's coming good now. So
he's still on the squad?
Yeah, he hasn't, as I said, we met him in Fiji. He didn't come here before that. Then he got delayed getting back here. It's been a disrupted sort of start to the year for Semi, but I think
that's a big piece, literally.
Yeah, it is a big piece. Yeah, no. Hopefully we'll. Yeah, I don't know if he's ready to go this week, but we'll work that out later in the week.
Is there a team nickname forthcoming?
No, but I hope there is.
And just one observation, and you can comment on it if you want or not. Ben Sugars. That's an adult star-esque name if I've ever heard one. And he's in L.A. And he's a hooker.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it does sound like a
sounds like a stage name of sorts. We can leave it at that.
Maybe you can activate that later in the season. Who knows?
Well, thank you for your patience and jumping through hoops to come on. I really appreciate you accommodating us. It's nice to talk to you, and the best of luck going forward.
Thanks, Matt. Good to see you again, mate. Talk soon.
All right, Mr. Stephen Hoiles, Director of Rugby for Rugby Football Club Los Angeles. We'll be right back with Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, our picks of the week, and our play of the week after this.
And now for the Major League Rugby Play of the Week, brought to you by the Rugby Network. Jordan Traynor, the fullback for Utah, using elusiveness, guile, and power, bouncing off would-be tacklers on a 30-meter scamper through heavy traffic to score in the Warriors' statement win. We chose this one because Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News told us to. And that is this week's Major League Rugby Play of the Week, brought to you by the Rugby Network.
I wouldn't like to be at the bottom of that.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now.
Here's your TRO, the Rugby Odds MLR picks of the week via WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate John Bradshaw Layfield, legendary USA Olympic Sevens coach Mike Friday, and King Gifte Belu, inventor of words.
Look for Seattle to be able to cover on that score. I don't know if New England is the same team.
Give me DC at home. I think they're going to run them out of the park.
Houston are still finding their feet. They got some decent players, but I just think on the road they're going to struggle at Utah. So Utah.
And hey, be sure to check out the Rugby Odds, the critically acclaimed sports entertainment show featuring big-name talent, exclusive highlights, insightful opinions, and irreverent, if not downright naughty, behavior. And we're back, and once again, we're welcoming in Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. You can find him at Ray's Rugby on the X, or used to be Twitter. Bryan, welcome back. How are you?
Well, I'm Canadian, so I got to tell you, Matt, these are dark days. Our boys lost in the Challenger Series. The Arrows are no more, and the Free Jacks has just been decimated in Chicago.
You didn't mention the tariffs.
Tariffs? There's tariffs?
All right, we'll skip that part of it. Any observations that you that caught your eye? Anything that caught your eye out of the ordinary in the league this weekend?
Well, I mean, obviously Friday night, Anthem came painfully close to the first ever win. I mean, so close, one of Latu's conversion kicks rang off both uprights. That's how close it was. If that goes over, they win that game. So tough one for them. I didn't think Miami was particularly sharp in that one, but nice to see Anthem playing a little bit of defense in that one. So things are looking up for them. San Diego, strong win over DC. I don't think DC played the conditions very well in that first half. Only got 3 points, the win behind them. That's just not good enough. Utah, wow, what can you say? I mean, Joey Mano over there, 3 tries, but the team as a whole really on fire. Right now, I was impressed with Joel Hodgson got to run off the bench, and really, it looked like he's fired up that D'Angelo Luila is starting ahead of him. So they've got some depth, certainly at that position. Impressive performance. Nola not looking so good in that one, crushed in the set piece and just couldn't buy point.
Let's move on. We got to move on and get your picks because we're running out of time. And these are from the Rugby Odds, the TRO, which is arguably the most entertaining rugby show on the planet, so you got to check that out, folks, even if I say so myself. MLR picks, though. Miami at home versus Chicago. Chicago road favorites by 6 points.
I think they can do a little bit better than that. If the Chicago team that just played the Free Jack shows up, I think they'll beat Miami by more than that. Miami not looking too swift right now. I think they've got some issues to sort out. Their forward pack is just a little bit lazy, and they're still missing Piusi, their tight head. If he's back, it's nice, but if not, that's more problems for them. So I see Chicago winning this one handily.
DC at home, -7 versus the Anthem.
You know, Anthem will be fired up. They came so close, and this isn't a huge, long road trip for them. I think they'll see that DC wasn't super sharp against San Diego, so Anthem might have a real crack at this one. I'm still going to go with DC, but I think it'll be close, like DC by 5.
Really? Okay. Utah at home, and this is an interesting spread, -2. They're the favorites over Houston.
I think that's fair, given how Utah has played over the past couple games. They've looked great. Now Houston is a step up from NOLA for sure, and they'll be annoyed, even though they did beat Seattle. I don't think they'll be happy with that performance. So I expect a better Houston side, but man, like you said, that altitude in Utah, that's going to be a challenge. So yeah, I like that pick. I'll go with Utah, and I'll go Utah by 7.
And here's another one that was kind of tough to come up with. Seattle, -3, at home, Starfire versus Free Jacks. Either one team's going to be 0-3, or one team's going to be 1-2, unless there's a draw.
Yeah, I'm going to back the Free Jacks in this one to bounce back after that crappy performance in Chicago. I'm sure they'll be fired up, and Seattle just looks so beaten up, and they'll lose Pongo again, Pongo Heine after that red card. So I just think they're really short on bodies right now, and it's just not happening for them at the moment. So I'm going to have to go with New England.
And then finally, you got that sunny Southern California Cali Cup. And it's the red hot, the sizzling San Diego, -7 versus LA.
I think this will be the most open game of the weekend. Both teams really like to throw the ball around, so this will be one for the casuals who like that kind of stuff. This will be a fun game, but I just think San Diego looks pretty good right now. Maybe underrated them in our kind of preseason predictions. I think they're maybe the hot team along with Utah in the league right now. So I'll go with San Diego in this one. 7 to 10 points, somewhere around there. But this is going to be a fun one either way.
And you can catch my picks on all these on the Rugby Odds. And on that note, Brian, we're out of time. Thank you, Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News /Ray's Rugby. Thank you to Mr. John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning and coach and director of rugby for LA, Mr. Stephen Hoiles, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out the Rugby Odds. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Tell your friends about us. Join our weekly newsletter, and please sign up for our American Red Cross blood donor team.